Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome to the Insiders. Tim Fitzgerald and the gang. We're joined by Lance Eisele. We did not bring in anyone from the outside. Gills, you're still making your funny noise. And we're happy to have you here after. Mute yourself, you fool. There you go. We can't figure out the noise coming from Ryan Gilbert, but we can't figure out much about Ryan Gilbert. We brought in Lance to speak wisdom, the youthful wisdom of Lance. And we're going to talk about some basketball teams that are kicking ass all of a sudden. The women are kicking ass so much that they dropped in the poll. Go figure that out. I'm a little baffled by that. And in other happenings, we will have a live Big 12 unveiling of the schedules tomorrow on a number of TV stations, including True TV, which I found very interesting, which tells me they're going to have some games because it's also on ESPN2. It's on FS, Fox Sports something. I don't know what it's on. And then it's on True TV. So look for that 10 a.m. Central Time tomorrow. A lot of lead up time there. They gave us a lot of time to send the message out. Maybe we'll have something over on the Big 12 Insiders channel, of which we have the host, Brien Hanley. Big B, I haven't got your thoughts on where K-State basketball is, so we're going to start there. But first, everyone, if you could, head over and like this show and share it, if you would please, with your friends, colleagues, and even your enemies. We like them too. And, of course, drop some comments over there because we always want your suggestions for topics. Big B, Kansas State wins 80-61. I know you had a lot of stuff going on. In fact, you got a Steelers podcast going on right after this, if anyone's interested. But you give me your thoughts on K-State absolutely drop kicking Iowa State at home.
Well, it was one thing that I thought that I didn't think that I would see is that they were the more physical basketball team. They literally physically beat up Iowa State. Rebounding, you out-rebound them on the road by 10. Rebounding is effort and physicality. That's all that it is. I thought, obviously, they shot the lights out. I shouldn't even say shot the lights out. They shot 50% from three. Now, that's a really high percentage. Don't get me wrong. But it's not like, I know they hit the long one, but it wasn't like every single thing that they threw up went in the basket. That's not what happened here. This wasn't a 75% from three. They made 23-point shots or something like that. That's not what happened. They were just a better basketball team. And it's okay to say that. I mean, this is a really good conference. K-State played well. I would say Iowa State did not play well, but I think a lot of that was K-State's doing, is that they just played better. This is a different basketball team. It seems like they're sharing the ball. But something that we've said, I don't want to toot my horn a whole lot, but I will in this case. I said the best players have to play like the best players. And in this winning streak, the best players have played like the best players, and everybody else is feeding off of them. That's what good teams do. Good teams don't have their role players that are leading the charge. That's not what this thing is about. It's not college basketball, man. It's not basketball in general. The best players have to play like the best players, and everybody feed off of that. And that's what happened on Saturday. That's what's happened the last couple games. It's good to see. It's a different team. It's good to see, Fitz.
Lance, give me your thoughts.
I think it's just a lot of fun basketball to watch. I think for the first time, we're really seeing a sustainable team from Jerome Tang, kind of like Brian said with the three-point shooting. It's not like they went out there and they shot 70 or 80% from three. Like, this was a normal game that they were just the better team. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing on my television is that they're just playing as a basketball team. They're playing how Tang wants them to play. They're sharing the ball. And, they're winning games. They're playing defense. And there's not a lot of things that teams can do. They've won, I think, 3 by double digits now. So it's hard to beat that.
Yeah, it is. They're just haven't won 3. They've emphatically won these 3, Cole. It's been impressive. And I assume from everything else we'd seen so far from this team, even in recent time, that they would squander that lead in the second half and go down to the wire. It got to 6 points, and Hazen.
There we go.
Hazen said, nope, we're going to shoot this one from 30 feet. And it was the dagger, as it turned out to be. Another impressive performance. But boy, tomorrow night, Cole, Arizona State, late game. You can't skip steps. And that's a big one as you come home to play KU in Arizona.
It is. Lance brought up the double digits, but they've won the 3 games by a average margin of victory of 20, guys. So it's like these games haven't even been close. And I think that I know for a fact Iowa State was a lot closer than a 19-point deficit, or a 19-point win, rather. But I think that the way that they played in the second half made that score, right? Like, it was a 2-point game at halftime, and that felt about right because Iowa State had the lead. It kind of went back and forth a little bit. So I think for 20 minutes, maybe it was a close game, but for the other 20 minutes, I agree that they absolutely steamrolled Iowa State, and you have to give credit where credit is due. Shout out to Jerome Tang and his staff for simplifying this offense, for simplifying the defense. They've talked about that ad nauseum. I mean, he's straight up said, he's like, we had over 140 defensive calls when he was at Baylor, and it's because guys had been in the system and they just expected him to know it. And so he said, we felt like we dummied it down. Well, we didn't dummy it down enough, and they have. And they've gotten to a point where they're able to let these guys play free. They're able to let these guys play loose and go play basketball. And Brian, I 100% agree with you when you said the 2 best players got to be the 2 best players. Well, you didn't say 2. You said the best players. I'll say the 2 best players, Doug McDaniel and Coleman Hawkins. Those guys are the best players on this team. They were brought in to be the best players on this team. And Fitz, I'll finish with this before we toss it over to Gilbert. In baseball terms, you needed Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez and Vinny Pasquantino to be the best guys on the baseball team for the Royals to make it to the playoffs. And what were they? They were the best guys on the team, and the Royals made the playoffs. You need Doug McDaniel and Coleman Hawkins to win basketball games, and they are winning you those basketball games.
Okay, squeaky Ryan Gilbert. We said a while ago that McDaniel and Coleman Hawkins needed to take over. They needed to be the alphas, and they are. They both played really well at Iowa State. But for me, the difference with this team isn't just that they're scoring more comfortably. Gills, their defense is so much better than it was.
Yeah, and I hope that my echoing is gone, fingers crossed. But, yeah, there was a lot of defensive plays that I broke down in the film study. Coleman Hawkins had back-to-back steals within like 15 seconds of each other. Max Jones was diving for a ball and saves it. Doug had a steal and score. Like, defense creates offense. That's how you set the tone, and that's how you win games, especially on the road in the Big 12. Shots may not always be falling. They were in Ames, but when they're not, your defense is the way you can make up for that. But with regards to Doug and Coleman, they've kind of settled into that role as being the dudes, but you can't overlook Hazen emerging as the sharpshooter. That's his role. Max Jones is the Desi Sills of this team. That's his role. Somebody pointed out on our message boards the numbers between Sills and Max Jones right now, and they're eerily similar. And the productive, spark off the bench, or I guess Desi wasn't off the bench later in the year, but the spark in the lineup is, that's who they are, right? And David Gasson is that, consistent presence in the post. Everybody in that starting 5 knows their role. Now, did it take a little bit longer than you might have hoped for guys to gel together on this team? 100%. But I think now that the next step moving forward is, okay, how can you get David Castillo to play more maturely, right? It wasn't his best game in Ames. How can you keep CJ Jones from fouling out? Moby's been awesome. On my film study, I said that Moby's one of his plays where he grabbed an offensive rebound, missed the putback, grabbed his own miss, then got fouled and made 2 free throws. Like, that was my favorite play. Moby's been great, but how can you get him to being just a little bit of a rebound here and a putback there and a block here and all that stuff, and get him to be more of a 15-minute per game guy and take some of the weight off of David Gasson's shoulders? And, Ugo, again, not bad rim protecting, but he wasn't necessarily a difference maker. So the starting 5, all 5 of those guys, and it started, of course, with Doug and Coleman, have found their roles, and now it's kind of more up to, I think, now at this point, the bench. If I'm Jerome Tang, I'm challenging some of those secondary pieces, the reinforcements to have some stronger, effort, or not effort. They've been good with effort, but stronger productive minutes off the bench. Was I echoing?
Yeah.
You didn't echo for me. You just got this weird squeaking sound, which might just be you. I don't know.
Maybe. Back to mute.
Brien Hanley. One of the things they're doing is they're playing to roles now.
Yeah.
Early in the year, it looked like they had no idea what they were supposed to be doing, how they fit into this puzzle, and somehow they've sorted that out. I don't want to say miraculously, but it's been we started to see signs of it over about 3 games, and then they got over the hump and won, and they just keep getting more comfortable with it. But he mentioned Max Jones. That guy has turned into the blue collar SOB you need on the court, doing a little bit of everything. I need to see him block some of those layups that Desi Sills would always block. But it's been remarkable. I don't care what team sport you're in. If you don't have your guys or your gals playing to roles, you're not going to be very good.
Yeah, got to have those guys that the role players, as I mentioned before, that play off of the stars, but they do the things that maybe you don't want your stars to necessarily do. And I say stars, your best players, they just do the stuff that you don't necessarily want them to do, and maybe they can't do. Either way, it's a role that it kind of goes unsung, but on this team, I don't think it's an unsung type of role, Fitz. I really don't. I think it's a necessity.
Right.
Playing well. I like what Gilbert said as far as the bench players, too, kind of filling their roles. The one thing I would say that is they just don't get a lot of minutes. You know, David Castillo the other day, it's hard to get into any type of rhythm when you only play 3 minutes. I mean, that's tough. I mean, he had no stats. He had a turnover. I get it, but it's you know, if you're going to trust your bench, you have to trust your bench. And if you don't, then you don't, you know, and I'm not saying either way is right or wrong. I'm just saying it's, you know, we're talking about Max Jones. He's in a role. He's playing a lot of minutes to be in that role. Well, the bench, they have a role too, but if you're only going to play him, like, you know, CJ Jones got 13 minutes, but the rest of the guys, I want to say it was like 6 or 7. Castillo got 3. That's not enough time to really, because they didn't play 7 minutes in a row and then they didn't play. I mean, it was 2 or 3 minutes here, 2 or 3 minutes there. That's not enough. But, you know, the role is maybe that's not what this team needs right now. Maybe they just need, hey, we just need you to give these guys a break, give these guys a breather, maybe come out or get in right before the TV timeout, give them actual 4 minutes of real time of getting a break, 4 or 5 of actual time, and then go from there. I just think maybe that's what the role is right now, is that, look, our top guys are what they are. We're bringing these bench guys off. We give guys a blow here or there, but for the most part, these are going to be our best guys. We need to have them out on the court as much as possible. And, you know, I saw in the chat, somebody's talking about, hey, we go 8-2 and we got a chance to make the tournament. That seems far-fetched. And I would say just win at Arizona State first. But it's not like if they went 8-2, Kansas State's in the tournament, people. I'm sorry. They absolutely would be. You look at the schedule that K-State has left, they go 8-2 over that schedule. They are 100% making the tournament. I don't care what anybody says. They would be in.
Well, let's bring it up. That was my next topic. But Lance, before we do that, who's jumped out at you? Who do you feel like has really been important? And maybe fans are missing some of the things they're doing on the court as we watch Coleman and Doug do their thing.
I think Moby comes to mind here. I don't know if he's necessarily unsung at this point. I think he's starting to get his flowers a lot. But I think the best way to describe it is, I guess in football terms, I want to say Toby's sophomore year, they used him as just like a missile off the edge, and it just created so much chaos. And I think that's kind of what Moby's role is. He just goes into the game, he gets a bucket, and then he's going to go get 2 steals, 2 blocks. He might foul somebody, but he's just going to cause chaos. The other team hates him. That's just all he does. And I think that's a really big role that we have on this team that we're seeing is there's times where the offense will go stale.
Yeah.
And he just comes into the game and he's always open. It seems like he finds the ball, gets steals, just makes plays. And I think that's a huge role that this team has needed over really the last 2 seasons since a guy like Desi Sills was there.
I agree.
And he's just been a super awesome the last like 3 games.
Ryan Gilbert, when he comes in, it's just like he electrically charges the team. It's incredible what Moby's brought to the table. He's really raw. He's green. He needs to get better at the game of basketball. But what he's really good at is giving a damn and coming in and playing like he cares. And as Lance said, just exactly right. He's a complete disruptor. You throw him in the game, it's like you just threw a blender into the middle of the party. And it's not just energy. He is so athletic. It's hard to match.
Yeah, Cole mentioned it's like he's on a trampoline, and it's so true. Like in Ames, I watched one of his jumps. It's like, goodness gracious, he's just so athletic. And I think the staff, Jerome Tang, I think the view of Moby certainly is maybe changed from right now to when they got Moby in the portal, just because of the potential, I guess, uncertainty with eligibility with him coming from JUCO. So, Jerome Tang had very good things to say after the West Virginia game or the Oklahoma State game about, his future, right? And he's one of the most athletic, maybe the most athletic guy he's ever coached. So Moby's special. And he's bought in. That's never been an issue with him. And a couple games earlier on in Big 12 play, when it was Moby and Castillo on the court in crunch time, you're not going to be on the court in crunch time if you're not bought in, right? So, Big B, like I agree with what you're saying. It's a tough act to juggle with the bench players' minutes. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? What came first, the poor production or the lack of minutes? And it's tough to get out of that. And especially when you're in the thick of Big 12 play or in the fire, there's no real easy solution for that. So I don't disagree with you at all, Big B, but there's no good, easy way out of maybe the problem off the bench right now for this team. I don't blame David Castillo for not playing well because he isn't in the rotation enough. But the fact of the matter is Castillo did not play his best game.
I agree. Cole, can you explain something to me?
Yes.
How come I can say Ike Garuku, but I cannot say Hazen?
You can't say that one either.
Well,
it's Ike Garuka.
Ike Garuka.
Yeah.
I have it. I know how to say it. I choked.
Yes. But when you were better than
the commentator.
Yes, better than the announcers and names.
Let's bring this up, boys. This is the big question now. A question we never thought we'd have to address, but there it is. Gills, you've been mapping this out. Where do they need to be to get into the tournament? I agree with Big B. It not only would get them to 18 wins going to Kansas City, but they would just lay waste to some really good teams. There's no doubt in my mind that they would be in the NCAA tournament with 8 wins. It won't even be close. I think they're in the conversation at 7. But your thoughts?
Yeah, the resume and the win-loss record, of course, if Kansas State goes 8-2, it would immensely improve. But at this point in time, the Wildcats are still in the mid-80s in the net ratings. Okay, that is not good. Rutgers is in the net era the worst team to ever get an at-large bid, and they were, I think, 77. And so that nobody in the 80s has ever gotten an at-large bid. So if Kansas State wins games, of course that's going to improve. But, guys, if you go back to the bubble from last year, of the Power 6 bubble teams, so that's the first 4 out and the last 4 in, no team had more than 12 losses, right? So from here on out, just off of those terms, K-State can only lose 1 more. Now, I get it. If you beat KU, Arizona, and Iowa State, like if K-State goes and wins 8-9 games, of course, it's going to put the committee in a tough spot. But I will caution people that 7-3, 8-2 history from the selection committee is not necessarily promising. So, like Big B said, the only thing you can worry about truly is Arizona State because that's the next game up on the docket. But Kansas State is really going to have to hang its hat on the quality wins that it can pick up in Big 12 play because there is not a single quality win in the non-con. There's not necessarily, Wichita State's the only quad 3 loss, and that is bad. But, there's no shame in losing to St. John's or Drake or even Liberty, right? I'm repping my Virgin Islands shirt. Like, Liberty was a good team out there. So there's not necessarily a loss that stings. It's the lack of quality wins. And Kansas State certainly can make up that ground. But the overall win-loss record, even if they run the table, isn't going to be great. The net rating as we stand right now, of course, isn't great. But I think there's optimism there because if you start winning games and playing better, that's naturally going to rise.
Yeah,
Can I jump in?
I would say about that.
Oh, go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. The thing that I would say about that is you're right as far as the net rating. It'll obviously go up. But the one thing to remember, the last couple of years, the committee has kind of gone away from we want the little guy, the mid-major teams to get in, because remember last year, Indiana State, I believe, was 29 in the net, and they didn't make it. And they won their conference. All they did was they lost in their conference tournament, and they didn't make it. So the committee over the last few years has kind of changed from, hey, we want the mid-majors to be in, yada, 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 to now it's, nah, you know what? We don't really like that model. We would rather see these Power 6, because I always call it a Power 6 conferences or Power 5, whatever we want to call it, get those Power 5 conferences in the tournament, more big-name teams, because the upsets are already going to happen no matter what. But we want to see big-name teams in this thing. That's why I say if K-State 8-2, even 7-3. 7-3 makes it tough because that's 14 losses. But 8-2, and then maybe you have one loss in the tournament, you could get in, because I think, first of all, I think their net rating would be way higher just by looking at the teams that they have left. But I also think it's because his light went off. I also think is just for the simple fact the committee is kind of gone away from the mid majors the last couple of years.
Do you have a motion detector on your light?
Yeah, they have automatic lights in the dorms, so if you're not moving for a while, it turns off. Forgot about that.
I moved so little I'd be in the dark all day. Cool.
I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, and I proposed a question on Twitter, which Ryan Gilbert can't see, by the way. So if you don't know, Ryan no longer has a Twitter account. Shout out to Elon Musk for that. I don't know. Hopefully we get it back soon. As you can see, he's very disappointed. He's muted, and he's also muted on Twitter. So there you go. I tweeted something out, and I just asked fans, I'm curious what fans thought. And I think it's been a mixed reaction. There's a lot of fans who are like, oh, they have to win out. There's no chance. They have to win the Big 12 tournament. And I kind of am siding with you, Brian. I don't think they have to do anything. Obviously they needed to do something crazy, which is go 8-2, considering this team was 3 games under 500. But the way that they're playing right now, that doesn't seem like a crazy ask. And then when you start to look at their schedule and you realize Arizona State's on Tuesday night, guys, I don't know if you've been following that program. Holy smokes, did everything go downhill for them on Saturday. You have to win that game tomorrow night. So that's number one. You can take care of business against Arizona State. You come back with Kansas, which has an opportunity, guys. Iowa State goes to Allen Fieldhouse tonight. They win that game. KU is 6-5 in conference. K-State wins Tuesday. They're 5-6 in conference. By the end of the day on Saturday, K-State could be above KU in the Big 12 rankings. Let that sit and resonate for a second. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it certainly could. My point behind all of this is after these 2 games, you have a stretch where there are some games on the schedule that are extremely winnable and that you might actually be favored in on the road. And I'm talking about Utah. I'm talking about UCF and probably Cincinnati. There are games that you should win. Now, it's hard to win Big 12 road games, and I totally get that. But you don't have to squint your eyes if K-State can take care of business on Tuesday to look down the rest of the schedule and dream a little bit, because I think this team is really, really good enough to pull off some wins in a row. And, guys, it's about peaking. What does Jerome Tang say, Ryan? They're peaking in March. They're peaking at the right time. And I think if they peak at the right time, the committee's going to notice that, and they're going to realize that the team might just be a little bit better than the record.
Cool. Well, I'm asking Lance a very important question. You scan that chat over there, see what our next topic will be. Lance, 8-2. That's all they got to do. It starts at Arizona State. Then they come home for Kansas and Arizona. Brother, I'm not buying in until they win those 3. If they win those 3, I'll entertain the conversation, because you would have run through some really good opponents and won 6 straight. But I'm not even certain they're going to win on Tuesday night, because that's the way the Big 12 works.
Well, I think one, if you aren't bought in after 3 straight just splatterings, I think you need to check your fandom a little bit. I think you need to maybe get some more positive energy going. But I think, yes, I'd agree that there's definitely some skepticism as far as how long can this stay going. I think it's always with Cinderellas. It's always like, okay, well, you caught this team off guard. Well, now you have everybody's attention. Arizona State is coming off a extremely disappointing loss, and Arizona State, if you haven't watched them this year, they are freakishly athletic. Can't really do a whole lot else, but they have some freak athletes. And so that's going to be a tough task just going on the road, having to do that. And I mean, this is what I call like the sandwich game. It's between beating Iowa State and then you got KU on Saturday. You wonder if they're going to be thinking ahead, but I definitely think you said 3-0. I think if they go 2-1, or if they beat KU, beat Arizona State, and then lose a close game to Arizona, I think it's hard to look at this team as not having a chance to win out the rest of the way or lose only one more game.
I'm with you. Big B. Having to go 5-2 over the last 7 as opposed to 6-1.
Yeah, it's at BYU, at UCF. That's tough. The UCF is much better than what people think, and BYU, it might be the most underrated team in the country. And those are both on the road, and both of those two teams play extremely well at home. Those would be the two games that I would say over the last 10 that K-State would lose. Those are the games that I would say that they're going to lose. That means you got to beat Kansas, which let's just hope Bill Self continues to play KJ Adams over Flory Badunga. Let's just keep the loyalty going. Keep it going. We'll take it all day. Don't play your lottery pick. No, don't do that. But then Arizona might be playing the best of anybody outside of Duke in the country and Texas Tech. That's tough. So I don't know. I mean, there's an opportunity here, but I wouldn't just say, hey, those two games are just down the road. I'm with you, Fitz. I'm like, there's win Tuesday, beat Arizona State and then beat Kansas. I think this is a one game at a time, singular focus, and go from there. Have a bigger goal in mind. We get it, but I think the bigger goal should be to win every game. So don't worry about what we just need to do, win every game. But let's just let's play the best game we can the next time that we play, and then we'll go from there.
Spoken like a true athlete.
Nah, I'm just saying. I mean, it's these games are tough. I mean, I do Big 12 insiders. I follow these basketball teams. Arizona is better than Kansas. Flat out, they're better than Kansas. BYU is about on the same level. We saw what UCF did, a bad call, and they beat Kansas in Lawrence. I think we all know how that goes when you play in Lawrence. So, I mean, they got a tough road ahead of them. I just don't want I don't want the fans to get ahead of ourselves because we played really well the last 3 games. Is it possible? Absolutely. But one game at a time. That's not just hyperbole. I'm just, look, we've played bad, guys. Let's not kid ourselves. We lost 6 games in a row and looked horrible. Now we're playing well. Let's keep the train rolling. But I think the train is rolling because they are taking it one game at a time.
Yep. You're right.
And before we move on, Fitz, I just want to say this. K-State just pulled off probably the best win in all of the Big 12 this season. And I don't know if anybody's going to be able to match that. And so even if this team doesn't go to the NCAA tournament, I think that a win like that really kind of validated the improvement that these guys have had. And I don't think that should go unnoticed.
No, I agree. What you got over there in the old chat?
Yeah. So obviously men's basketball is off and rolling, but Danny says, hey, we need Ethan in this panel to talk about the Lady Cats. If you're interested in that, go check out the PowerCat podcast that Fitz and Ethan did. It was exclusively on the women's team, but there is a big game coming up. And Fitz, I guess I'm going to throw this to you because the GA tickets are sold out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, has this ever happened, I guess, for women's basketball?
Oh, yeah.
And
back in the day with Wecker and Oldie and Kane and all them, they'd sell out on a regular basis.
I'm excited for this game. I'm curious what you guys think.
If you're not familiar, if you haven't really been following the women, they're tied for first in the Big 12 with TCU, an exceptional team with some great players, one fairly notable. And then they come in Wednesday night to Bramlage Coliseum. It's enormous. It's the biggest game on the schedule. And, of course, Aoka Lee is still injured. They absolutely throttled Kansas on Sunday. I mean, they just dismantled KU without Lee. And they also beat Iowa State the game before in Bramlage. It's enormous. They got their hands full. but it's going to be a really interesting matchup. And whoever wins that game is going to be right there in the driver's seat coming down the home stretch. And I think K-State is capable of it. Lance, you have thoughts on that?
Well, first off, I just want to say, how do you drop in the polls after
Yeah.
what was it, like a 30-point win over KU? I mean, that was just I don't know how you do that. Yeah, I think they got it. I think it's going to be bumping. I think the Bramlage is going to be crazy. I mean, it was the other night for Iowa State where they almost lost that one, but I think the team is really playing well together, and I think they're surprisingly really good even without Ayoka Lee on the floor. They've been able to find ways to win without her, which has been really impressive with this team.
I haven't been bumping in a long time. In fact, the last time I was bumping, I think I pulled a muscle. Ryan Gilbert, are you going to go watch that game, TCU? I know you got some interest in the Frogs, so to speak. Something hopping.
Perhaps. I'm more concerned about my echoing, but perhaps.
I wonder if it's a new device we hooked up.
I know, but it's other than the potential echoing. I think it's running smoothly. So
okay,
your
that's
sonar
good.
is pinging. According to
exactly. I gave him something to speed up his computer, and actually, it's a surveillance device, and it's putting off a signal here. I'm actually sending him brain waves that make him act differently. Big B, we don't talk about women's basketball much, but this team's deep, and they are fun to watch. And I'm just really impressed by the job this coaching staff, Jeff Mitty as head coach, did in the offseason of adding pieces to what they already had. And they put themselves in a position, if they can get Lee back and healthy, they could really make a substantial run in the tournament.
They can. It's like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, is that they're more athletic than what they have been, and it's weird because look, Ayoka Lee is not the most athletic person out there. But they're also really, really good when she is out there, but they're just more athletic. And in today's basketball, women's basketball, you have to be athletic. I mean, look, the game has come so far, and you could say in the last 10 years, but in the last 5 years, the game has just gone just absolutely bonkers as far as how the game is played. So you have to be athletic everywhere to be able to compete. K-State has done that. They've done a really good job of saying, look, we've got this one inside player and we can play around her, but we need to be ultra athletic. We need to be able to shoot, handle the ball, do all these things around her. And now that she's out, there's people that can still do all those things and handle the ball and shoot. And it wasn't just, okay, we throw the ball into Ayoka and that's it. We'll just watch her play. No, first of all, Ayoka doesn't play that way because she's a complete basketball player. If she gets double teamed, she'll find the open person. But another thing is the K-State, the women are just better. Let's just put it out there. They just have a better basketball team than what they did a year ago. It's okay to say that. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with the team last year. This team is just better. And that's a good thing because that's all you want from your team is to be better from one year to the next. They are. They got a chance. I'm just telling you right now, they got a chance. I've seen them all. We don't talk women's basketball a lot, but I see them all. I'm not saying that they're the best team out there, but I'm saying they can compete with the best teams out there. I am saying that.
Yeah, and thank you, Ethan. Ethan isn't on the show, but he's contributing here. There are a little less than 3,000 reserve seats available. The GA is sold out. So if you want to go, you can still make it. And it's been impressive. It really has. Ryan, Cole, I'll go to you with this one.
Thank you.
Are they in a spot? Is Jeff Mitty in a spot now of really building something lasting? Because, they had the loss of Colorado in the first game out without Lee. And now they seem to have adjusted pretty well. And they played at a really high level on Sunday in Lawrence without their star player. I just feel like he's putting so many pieces in place and he's got more coming that this might be a permanent fixture towards the top of the Big 12 standings and maybe even into the national picture.
Yeah, I think they are cementing themselves as I think maybe not the program to beat in the Big 12 when it comes to women's hoops. I think TCU what a turnaround for them, by the way. A team, they had to forfeit games last year. I don't know if you guys remember this.
Oh, I remember it.
They had to forfeit games last year because they had so many people out. And then obviously they got Haley Van Lith, and that kind of elevated them a little bit. But this was not a team that was expected to compete at the top of the conference, and so you're going to see that. K-State was picked to win the Big 12, and they're living up to those expectations even without Ayoka. And the one thing that I thought was the most fascinating about that game on Sunday was the fact that they were able to play so fast, and that to me is extremely, extremely encouraging if you're a K-State fan, because the fact that they were able to get up and down the court, and Serena Sundell had early foul trouble, which just opened the door for Terrence Sides, who has a chance to be one of the best point guards in college basketball next season. She's probably one of the best 6 players in college basketball right now. I don't think this team has any holes. And I would say the only maybe hole that this team might have is they might not be able to crack up on the defensive end with the very, very elite teams in the country. But if they shoot the ball like they did on Sunday, it doesn't matter who they're playing. They're going to win. And some days you're going to make shots, and some days you're not. I just think that this team has all the weapons to make a deep run. And I still think that they're in really good shape to win the Big 12. Wednesday's huge. If they win on Wednesday, I think there's a really good chance that they could be hanging up a banner in Bramlage Coliseum.
Yeah, TCU's good too. K-State beats TCU. TCU's one of the best teams in the country. Let's make no mistake about it. They have 3 players that are absolutely fantastic. K-State wins that game, people. Just look out and just look out.
One of you young guys, could you explain who TCU's star player is, or one of their 2 stars? I don't know how to put it in words because I'm old.
Well, I would say Ryan has the scouting report, doesn't he, from the men's game? He stayed to watch the women's one, so
that's right.
Gilles,
you got any insights on this?
I'm muted.
Oh.
In all seriousness, we're referring to Haley Van Lith here. Her NIL value is through the roof, and so it's pretty impressive that TCU was able to land her. But I think that kind of goes to show what that program is building, and it should show you how much they care about women's basketball. Because I know, Gilbert, you can attest to this. There was more people at the women's games than there are for the men's games in Fort Worth, and maybe that says more about the state of the men's program right now under Jamie Dixon. But this is a legitimate basketball program that TCU has, and as Big B said, that's another team that has a chance to go on a run and make Final Four. So these are the 2 best teams in the Big 12, and I don't even think it's very close.
Cool. Yeah. She's a social media star.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's good. I mean, she had her own deal with Adidas, and she trained with Kobe. So, I mean, she can play. She played at Louisville for 3 years. That's how I know a lot about her. So she's absolutely good and can play. But you're right, Fitz, social media star. That's kind of where she, and as far as her NIL stuff, again, she also has to deal with Adidas, and that is because she's really good at basketball.
Yes, she is. She's legit. She's not just all splash. She can certainly play. But I suspect a lot of men or guys are showing up for those women's games at TCU. Just a guess. I don't know what tipped me off there. Let's turn our attention to Big 12 football. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the Big 12 is having a live event tomorrow at 10 a.m. I assume it's live. Maybe they recorded it. It'll be on ESPN2, True TV, Fox Sports Network, and other platforms, ESPN Plus and on. This is cool. I don't know how they're going to exactly fill up a full half hour or whatever they're doing, but Big B, this is what Brett Yormark's brought to the table. Just because we've never done it before doesn't mean we're not going to do it right now. And I love him because I wonder how long this has been on the burner. Because I have a feeling he saw this on the internet, because I saw people suggesting a live show introducing the schedule a week ago. And I have a suspicion that Brett Yormark rolled a hand grenade into his office and said about 7 days ago, hey, let's do this live. Let's put it together. And everyone had to figure it out. But that's what I love about him too. He just keeps going. He never stops.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's genius. You know, you want to get your conference, not that it's not on the map, but you want to get it some more airtime, some more pub. This is a way to do it. And here's the thing. There's not really ever an off season for football. There just isn't. You know, we talk about, well, they're not doing anything now. Well, they're doing this. This is something, and people will be talking about this for a while. Then, spring games and all this stuff. There's just never really a real off season in football. This is just another way for the Big 12 to get involved and get their name out there. Again, they're not doing it at night. They're not interrupting what is going to be a good basketball day for the Big 12. They're doing it early in the morning to get it out there. I think it's incredible. Look, Brett Yormark, we knew that he was going to be innovative. We knew that he was going to be a guy that was going to wasn't going to take being third lying down. Okay. Yeah, we might be third, but that doesn't mean we're not going to do everything in our power to get to 2, to get to 1. And this is just another example of that, man. Good stuff.
I agree. Ryan Gilbert, will you be planted in front of your TV at 10 a.m. in the morning to watch that riveting unveiling of schedules?
Are you asking me to wake up at 10 a.m.?
Yeah, my bad. My bad.
You're a demanding boss. You're so demanding.
Wake up at 9 and figure out that microphone.
Right. Well, I guess I'm excited to figure out the destinations, or I guess the dates of the destinations that I get to take trips with my favorite boss in the world.
Wow. Someone else is going? Yeah, I'm interested in that. It of course impacts us quite a bit, but let's be honest, K-State fans, this year's schedule sucked in football. Not only did it turn out to be pretty ruthless, playing every other top team in this conference, just the fact that they didn't have home games for 6 weeks in the middle of the season was absurd. They had one maybe in that 6-week period. It's absurd. So hopefully this thing offers fans a more balanced schedule, home and away. But I know this, Lance, some of us are going to be in Dublin. They don't have to unveil that. We're going to be in Dublin on the 23rd of August to watch the first football game in the season between Kansas State and Iowa State. And I feel like that's a good tent pole for the Big 12 to promote their product starting tomorrow with this live show. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I think it's going to be an interesting game. I'm assuming you want me to talk about Dublin, right?
I don't care. You talk about it. When I'm talking, you just talk about whatever you want. I don't ask questions. I just talk.
Well, yeah, I think that's going to be a good opportunity for the Big 12. As the K-State fan, I kind of hate it because it's like you're getting the Band-Aid ripped off with a rivalry game already. You got to hear about that from week 1 all the way to the end of the season, or actually week 0. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, we saw this year. I think it was Florida State, Georgia Tech this year was awesome, and how much attention that got. It's just with the week 0 game in that primetime slot in Ireland, it's the perfect opportunity where the entire sport is watching just that game.
Yep.
And so I think it's huge. I think it's just a way to be competitive with the number 1 and the number 2, because that's the only time really, I mean, all season we're going to probably get game day for Big 12 outside of like maybe a top 10 matchup later down the road. And so I think that's huge, both for K-State and the Big 12. And I think it's going to be really exciting.
I'm fired up. I wish the Big 12 did its own pregame show, to be real honest. Mm-hmm. Bring in some talent. I got a guy over here in the other corner of this box that I would put on it, but I think they should be doing something on a platform, but that's probably for on down the road. This is just an interesting platform for the Big 12. I think it's really cool. It's the first real true rivalry game that they've had over in Ireland. And I think the folks in Dublin and the Temple Bar District are going to be happy when everyone arrives and happy when they leave, because it's going to be K-State and Iowa State fans with basically unlimited beer. I mean, world peace might be at jeopardy here. Another headline from today that I found fascinating. Someone take this and run with it. Nebraska is canceling their spring game. Nebraska's canceling their spring game because of a lack of players. This gets to Chris Kleiman's point. Get rid of these spring games. In fact, he's in favor of getting rid of spring football and going to, off-season things like the NFL in June and then come back in August for your camp. Just make football that one semester and what bleeds over with the playoffs. Get it out of there. I'm all for it, but when Nebraska cancels their spring game, that's enormous, because that is religion up there in Lincoln.
And I'll say this about that too. They had a dunk contest with their football players at halftime of a basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Kleiman, please let your football players do that. I want to see Avery Johnson do a windmill dunk. And then I want to see, maybe if Lincoln Cure was on campus, I would like to see a windmill dunk from him as well. And a hypothetical dunk contest with the football team. I think Avery Johnson wins. Let it be known. But as far as the topic of Nebraska goes, I think also that just kind of shows the overall attitude of coaches, not just Nebraska, right? You talk about Chris Kleiman with that, but that is not an uncommon thing. The reason why spring football is nice is because it develops your players. Like, that's why coaches like it, is because it's literally all they're worrying about is coaching. They're not really worrying about game planning. They're not worrying about recruiting, in-season recruiting. They're worried about getting out there on the practice field, making their practice scripts, and developing their young players. I think you can do that in the summer, but if they did move it to the summer, you would have more of an emphasis on actually getting your players ready to play, and so you could do both. I think that it's a fascinating idea, and the fact that Nebraska did cancel their spring game goes to show you, if they will cancel their spring game, then maybe some other teams should do the same.
Well, yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think if we get rid of spring football, it alleviates the transfer portal problem.
Right.
Because you don't have to be there for spring practice. You probably want to be there for class, but if you don't make it to spring practice, you show up in June and there you go. You get your camp right there, almost like a mini camp. I don't know. I'm just not a big spring football fan. I never have been. By the way, Lance, either your roommate got back or the serial killer's back. One of the two. I'll let you know if anyone comes like with a object, it sneaks up behind you. I'll let you know before you're hit. Just because I'm a giver. Big B, give me your thoughts on spring football and where its future might be in college football.
I mean, I don't really have. I'm not indifferent to it. I actually liked it more than conditioning. Imagine that, a big guy would like him actually practice more than conditioning. So it was fine for me. It's tough because all it is practice, but at the same time, you're working on a bunch of different stuff. It's good to kind of break up the conditioning from the actual work on the field. So I think the work on the field, it helps. I know that for an absolute fact. So I'm not indifferent to it. Maybe if they allow some of that stuff, some on-field stuff, maybe you can break it up that way. It doesn't necessarily have to be hitting and all of that, because I could have done without that. But the on-field, drills and plays and position groups and all that kind of stuff, I think all of that helps. Having said that, I don't think it's get rid of spring football and get rid of the spring transfer portal. If you get rid of that changes a lot of stuff, and then you don't have to worry about it. But the one thing I'll say about Nebraska before I have to run is Matt Rule, they better be good, because there was over 60,000 people at their spring game last year.
Yep.
You know how much money they made from that?
Yep.
And if you guys aren't any good, that game is coming back. I don't care what Matt Rule wants or says. At bottom line, you better win more than 7 football games, because if you don't, that game's coming back, because they need more revenue out of that.
Yep, I'll agree. Pretty amazing. Hey, finishing up real quick, I know you got to go. Danny Boy asks, is it a bigger game in Ireland for K-State or Iowa State? What do you think, Big B?
K-State. I think it's a bigger game for K-State because I believe people are – the perception is K-State didn't have a great year last year. That's the perception. Whether we think they did or not, I think it was a little downer. But bottom line is, you got to get off to a good start. They beat us two times in a row. I think that more than anything for K-State fans is we got to get out of this rut of losing to Iowa State, and get off on the right foot, in my opinion. So definitely K-State.
Agree. Big B is off to host his own show on the Steelers Almighty channel. He's got 3 different channels he's on. He's a star. He's a star. Thanks, Big B. Appreciate you being here. Let's go around the horn now. Guys, as I go around the horn to the other side of the screen. How did Lance get all big? I like Lance. Lance, you're huge all of a sudden. Let's start with you. You seem really important over there in that slot. Iowa State or K-State? Is it bigger for K-State?
Yeah, I'd say.
I agree.
I think for honestly just a morale standpoint, I think that's why I'm kind of not. I'm a little uneasy about the game. Is I think a loss to Iowa State in Ireland on prime time. I mean, look at the last 2 years, how demoralizing those losses have been. And just, I think that just really is not how you want to start a season off. And I think Iowa State right now, as far as last year, they had 11 wins, went to the Big 12 title, really great season. They kind of have the upper hand in that rivalry. And I think K-State really needs this win just to start off strong and have that confidence heading into Big 12 play.
I would agree. I think having that game parked at the end of the season has not been good for Kansas State. And for whatever reason, but I'll give Iowa State this. They've been more bought into this game. Whoa, Brian Gilbert's gone now. More bought into this game than what Kansas State has. And Cole Carmody, I'm not going to say it's a must win, but it kind of feels that way for Kansas State to start the season.
Yeah, it does. I'm going to go the other way with you. I think this game is more important for Iowa State, and I think it's more important for Iowa State for all the reasons that Lance said. They have yet to win a Big 12 championship. That's obviously something that fan base knows. Oh, my God, Ryan looks so weird.
Did you change cameras?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, my computer decided to die, so here we are.
Okay.
I'm going to say Iowa State. I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm wearing green because today I got my flights booked to Ireland. The tickets are on sale. So after you get done watching this, if you're going, make sure you go buy a ticket because I have a feeling those are going to go fast. The ticket window opened at 5:00 Central Time. So make sure that you buy your tickets. But yes, I think this game is more important for Iowa State because they have yet to have that Big 12 championship game. And if they can't beat K-State, then they ain't getting that. If they can't beat K-State.
Okay. I actually like your phone camera. That looks kind of nice. It's still your face, but you know what I mean. Iowa State or K-State, bud?
Yeah, I like what Big B said. Short and sweet with, Kansas State last season. Or excuse me, did I say Iowa State? I meant to say Kansas State. Kansas State's season last year was not to the standards of what a lot of people expected heading into the year, and Iowa State was playing in Arlington. So this season, I guess, means more for Kansas State, and that obviously starts with the first game. So, I agree with everything that you guys have said from what I heard before I left for a second, but I'll go with Kansas State.
Okay. Cole's the outlier. I agree with your thinking, though, Cole. If Iowa State didn't win it, But the other side that we don't talk about is it's technically a K-State home game.
That's true.
So it would be like giving up one of your home games as a loss if you don't pull this off. Well, Kansas State men's basketball plays at Arizona State on Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central Time. So get your nap in. I know I'll have to. The women play Wednesday at Bramlage against TCU. Tickets are still available. It's a huge game. Get out there. And, of course, it's the Sunflower Showdown Part 2 on Saturday at Bramlage Coliseum as K-State and KU tangle. I like it better when the teams play like early in the season and then later in the season, not a couple weeks apart. I don't like it, but that nobody listens to me, particularly Ron Gilbert. Any final thoughts, boys, before we wrap up the shop? Good. I didn't want any. That's it for the Insiders. Appreciate you watching, listening, or however you did this. And I apologize for Ryan Gilbert causing trouble. He does it all the time, but at least he's good at it.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.